Hi, I'm Mrs. Painter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Today we are making cherry chili sauce. This is a part of our Alaska to Nevada series where I take something here in Nevada and I make the recipe I made in Alaska. In Alaska we made choke cherry chili sauce. And choke cherries are a little more tedious to work with because it's mostly seed and not a lot of fruit, whereas the cherries has a lot of fruit on it. So to start, there are some alterations to the recipe to account for having more fruit flesh, but let's go ahead and get started. I have 4 cups of cherries that are pitted, and I had them in the freezer. It's always good to get your fruit whenever it's available. If you don't have time to process it, go ahead and clean it up and freeze it. If you're working with cherries, it's really important. You don't want to break the pits. You don't want your pit in what you're making. You do not want leaves. You do not want stems. You do not want bark. Just take that into consideration. So let's go ahead and we're going to use our blender to make this a little easier. Choke cherries, we had to use a colander sieve, but let's go ahead and use our blender. See if I can dump this in without making a huge mess. Not too bad. We're going to add a cup of water to this. And we're just going to blend this a little bit. There we go. That's not so bad. And let's go ahead and add this to our pot. And again, I'm using one of those old inserts from an Instapot. Those come in really handy for small batches of canning projects. Let's go ahead and turn our heat on medium. All right, so we're going to add, you can use apple cider vinegar. I happen to have kombucha. Now, if you're going to use kombucha in place of apple cider vinegar, you need an acidity tester. Your kombucha should be approximately 2 to 2.5%. Let's go ahead and add this in. We're going to be using 1.5 cups of honey. Now, if you wanted to make this vegan, you could probably substitute molasses, or you could substitute maple syrup, and you would just want to let it cook down a little bit longer, especially for the maple syrup, since that's a little more like water. We're going to be putting in a cup of finely chopped red onion. We have a 1/2 cup of crushed red pepper. Let's give this a little stir. All right, let's get to our seasoning. We are going to be using some minced garlic. Usually I just chop it up, but since I happen to have some jarred minced garlic, we'll just go ahead and use this. We need 1 tablespoon. We need a teaspoon of sea salt. I'm using Redmond Ancient sea salt. We need a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. We need a 1/4 teaspoon of mustard. Let's give this a little bit of a stir. So we're going to want to let this simmer for a little while. We definitely need to have the honey all melted into it. And before we're able to do any canning, we're going to want to let this boil for 10 minutes. So we let our sauce simmer for 10 minutes, and then we brought it to a boil for 10 minutes. Now we're ready to go ahead and put this in our jars. Our jars have been washed with soap and water, along with our lids and our rings. I have extra jars, and I'm doing a mixture of 1/2 pints and 4-ounce jars, just for different types of cooking, and there's no difference in the processing time for these. Now in Alaska, we were at about 800 feet of elevation, and so I processed this for 10 minutes. It has a lot of applications. You can use it in stir fries. Again, I mentioned grilled cauliflower, but other grilled veggies, I think zucchini would be really good as well. It's wonderful on spring rolls. In fact, my cookbook, pretty sure that's got a spring roll recipe using the sauce. And it's great on pasta, and you can even put it on meat. I found it extra good on sea bass and Bering Sea cod. It has just a little bit of a kick with the right amount of sweetness to it. And these little 4-ounce jars are also great for gifts. When you're doing your summer canning, think about if you have a gift application. Just be careful not to overfill your jars. You don't want your sauce to seep out in the canning process and break your seal. Let's see if we can get the rest of this here in our extra jar. This pot is hot. We are using gloves. We do not want to touch this with our hands. And just pour very slowly so you don't splash out. This worked out absolutely perfect. The next step is we're going to want to wipe the rims of our jars with white vinegar. This really helps to avoid problems with sealing. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and turn the heat up on our canning pot. Just get this water warming up a little bit. Just going to put it about medium. I've added 3 quarts of water to the pot. Every pot is a little different. You should check your instruction manual to verify how much water to add to yours. And I highly recommend these little flip top caps. Super great for dispensing sauce. You can just put this in the refrigerator. It'll be very effective. trying a different type of lid today. My favorite lid for jarring is Lehman's, but my husband came across Country Classics on sale, and as much as I can, anytime he sees canning lids on sale, he buys me some. Alrighty, time for our bands. And I like to just hold the lid in place while I put the band on. I think it helps keep it lined up, improves your sealing. Ooh, this one's a little warm. Alrighty, so these are canning tongs. These are super important if you're serious about canning. Makes it easier to avoid burning yourself. Let's go ahead and put our jars in our pot. Space them evenly so it'll all be very well balanced. All right, let's add another rack. Perfect. Very good. Let's go ahead and add our lid. Get it lined up. Arrows. Turn it. So I'm going to turn this up now, and we're going to let this go until it blows steam for 10 minutes. All right, our pot has been blowing steam for 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and put the rocker on. That steam is hot. So the next step is we're going to want our gauge to come up to 15 pounds of pressure, and the rocker will start rocking. Now, if you only have a canning pot with the gauge, you need to have that calibrated every year. It's really nice if you can get a pressure canner that has both a rocker and a gauge. The visual is helpful. You don't want it to get too hot and to have too much pressure, but you definitely want to know for sure how many pounds of pressure you're processing at. All right, our gauge is just over 15 pounds of pressure, and you can hear our rocker just starting to kick in. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 15 minutes, and then we'll be back. All right, our timer's going off. Let's turn this off. Heat is off. I'm going to let that cool for 2 hours. Whatever you do, do not take the lid off until the dial gauge comes down to 0 or all the pressure is off. The best way to know that is to let it cool for a while. If you want to make the chili sauce with choke cherries, my recipe is in this cookbook. I'll leave a link to it on Amazon. I will also include typed directions in the description of this video. But for now, let's give this sauce a try. It's got a little kick on the backside. I would call it heat maybe 2 for Thai food. It's really good. Hope you try making it. Thanks for joining me.